Hi everybody, this is James. I just got home from our first test and I hope you're all feeling very well about how you did on the test. And I just wanted to right away jump into some problems that are still fresh in my mind, some of the ones that I had some difficulty at first solving on the test, in hopes that maybe some of you also struggled a little bit with these problems and this might help you a little bit. So I know that word problems can be a very common trip up for a lot of people when it comes to calculus. And I wanted to go over the word problem that was on the test, or at least on my version of the test. So you may be given a problem where something like a company sells X quantity of shirts at a price P, where the monthly profits are represented by some function f of x equals, in this case, negative 50p squared plus 1700p minus 12,000, where p represents the price of the shirts sold, and the entire function represents the monthly profits. Now, in order to set this problem up, you need to recognize that there's any number of variables you can put into this and get a correct answer. And so what you're going to be asked are certain questions that will require you to be able to utilize this, and you'll see how in just a second. You may be asked a question such as, what price P is our variable will maximize profits. So in other words, which p variable can you put into this function to get its maximum value? And another question you may be asked is, well, what would that maximum profit be if you were to put that maximum value of, or that p in that would maximize the value of the function? So what is the maximum profit? So what is the biggest number that we can get out of this function by putting any variable in? And then the first question would be, well, what is that variable? Now, the first thing you should do when you look at this is, well, don't get tripped up by the words. Don't get tripped up by, it's a word problem and you need to think about all these things. Just look at what you're given. You've been given a function and it's in a standard form where you should be able to recognize its parent function. Well, the parent function is right here, and you should realize right away that that is going to be a negative 50 coefficient variable squared, p squared. So it's going to be a parabola, and because it's negative, it's going to be reflected about the x-axis. So it's going to be a concave down or downward facing parabola, and it's going to be pretty steep because it's multiplied by 50. So it'll look something like this. Sorry for the, actually that's way too broad. It'll look something like this, maybe even more narrow than that. Okay, so with that said, now you know that your vertex is going to be its maximum. And these questions you're asked have to do with maximums. So the vertex is really going to give you the answers to your questions. And if you recall, we had some special tricks for pulling out our vertex from a given function in this form. So our vertex is going to be hk. And the way we pull out hk is, well, h in the standard form of this function, where we have our coefficient A, coefficient B, and our coefficient C is going to be negative B over 2A, which, if we plug our numbers in, will be negative 1700 from our B value right here over 2 times our A value here, negative 50, which will equal negative 1700 divided by negative 100, which will just give us 17. So right away, we know that our H is going to be 17. And we can get our K value by plugging our H value back into that function. And I'm having a little bit of a lockup here on my Photoshop. There we go. So plug our H value into the function. So we have negative 50 times, we're going to plug in our H value for each P variable present in the function. 17 squared plus 1700, I'll go ahead and fill that in just a second, minus 12,000. Plug 17s in. And probably the more accurate way to write this would actually be just f of 17. Okay, so if you go ahead and put this in your calculator, unless you're insane, you will get, or should get, 2,450. Now what this tells you is that your vertex is at the horizontal of 17 and the vertical of 2,400. So let's go ahead and try to visualize what this is actually doing. Let's put this up here. Now, so we've got a graph and we've got a vertex somewhere up in space. Now we know we put it up there because we know it's a negative parabola. It's going to be going down and our vertex is going to be our maximum, which is going to give us the answers to our questions. So let's go ahead and just kind of draw a parabola on there to represent what's going on. Now you can kind of get an idea of what we're actually doing. We are trying to find this point here. And our H and K values plugged in give us 17 and 2,450. So what this says is this vertex is over 17, where it reaches its maximum value of 2,450. This being our K-axis and this being our H-axis over here. So with that information, now you have to go back to your word problem. And when you start with a word problem, you figure out the answer with math, but you have to present your answers as an answer to the word problem. Well, the answer is going to be to the question, what price P will maximize profits? Well, you found out that the 17 will yield you your vertex or your maximum of your parabola. So P is going to be your price at which your parabola maximizes. However, P equals a price of $17. Now, you it may be euros, or whatever is in your word problem is what your answer will be. This particular question was dollars, if I recall, so we'll put a price of $17 will maximize the profits. And that profit maximum is going to be $2,450. This is the point at which maximum profits are yielded. If you want to think about this in terms of supply and demand, well, this is the point where demand and supply kind of meet in equilibrium, where the profits are maximized as well. Downward on the parabola here, less people, or the company is going to be willing to produce less goods because the price to sell the price they're getting for the t-shirt is just too low. Now, this way, the parabola also drops because less and less people are willing to buy the item because the price is too expensive. So that's kind of a way to get a mental grasp on why the parabola behaves the way it is with these prices. And you can kind of go ahead and plug this in. Well, if your function f of x equals, if we plug in 2400, well, or sorry, rather, if we plug in 17, well, then we get 2450. So f of x is 2450 when 17 is plugged in for your variable p. This is this function in its maximum form. And you can check this. 2450 equals negative 50, 17 squared plus 1717 minus 12,000. These two sides of this equation will equal each other because this is, or hopefully it should equal each other, because this is the maximum value for this function. And your answers are, well, maximum price of $17 per t-shirt will yield a maximum profit monthly of $2,450. Thanks, and good luck with word problems.